CCPA is telling us to do something that no other state privacy regulation is telling us to do. We have to attest to the regulatory body, the CPPA, that we've done our risk assessments and how we use personal information of consumers. And we have to demonstrate that we've only selected those processes that have the right balance between consumer risk and the benefits that we or they might enjoy from the way we handle their information. The way this works is we have to do a risk assessment and then find the appropriate safeguards to find the right balance, and then make sure that we attest to that truthfully under penalty of perjury. Here's what's in the body of that attestation. I attest that the business has conducted a risk assessment for the processing activities set forth in California Code of Regulations. Under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California, I hereby declare that the risk assessment information submitted is true and correct. So what is that risk assessment information that you're going to be providing? Well, remember what the goal of the risk assessment is. The goal of the risk assessment is restricting or prohibiting the processing of personal information if the risk to privacy of the consumer outweighs the benefits resulting from processing that data to the consumer, the business, other stakeholders, and the public. Well, how do we do that risk assessment? Well, many years ago, HALOCK developed something called duty of care risk analysis, and we issued it to the public as an open standard that anyone can use. And since then, state regulators have used it to explicitly define what reasonable cybersecurity controls are, and it's certainly useful here. Because what DoCRA tells us to do is whatever kind of risk assessment method we use, the risk analysis must consider the interests of all parties that the risk may harm. Also, that risks must be reduced to a level that would not require a remedy to any party. And 3, that safeguards must not be more burdensome than the risks they protect against. It's a cost-benefit analysis explicitly. Now, the challenge that organizations have is there are a lot of not suitable risk assessment methods out there. What do I mean by that? They're perfectly good for what they're designed to do, but they're not designed generally to evaluate the magnitude of harm to others, including consumers. If you are using maturity assessments, gap assessments, audits, FAIR, applied information economics, risk IT, or NIST 800-30 or ISO 27005, you'll find them to be very useful for the purpose that they're built, but they're not built to help you evaluate the risks to consumers. There are ways for you to apply DoCRA into each of these models, and we can show you how if you'd like. There's no need to abandon what you have if there's a way to adopt duty of care risk analysis in those methods. So you don't want to do a risk assessment with these methods unless you can include the risk of harm to others and to present a balancing test that demonstrates that you've looked at both sides. Now, in the attestation, what you're also going to need to include is the number of records that you're using for this purpose. You're going to need to talk about what kind of data is in those records, and it has to be the least required data type. So if you don't have to use government IDs, don't use government IDs. You have to demonstrate that you've done the risk analysis and that you can show the results to the CPPA. It doesn't need to see all the details, but to say that for this purpose, for this number of records, this kind of data, we found the benefit to the consumers to be greater than the risk that they faced, and the benefit to everyone else to be greater than the risk that the consumers faced. In one case, we needed to apply a safeguard to ensure that balance, and this is what that safeguard is. And then you use that attestation that we showed you a little earlier. And if you've done that duty of care risk analysis to that privacy or to the automated decision-making use of personal information, you can make a statement like this truthfully, and that's your goal. This is a new area of law, at least as far as privacy regulations that are coming to us from the states. It's important to get this right. You can take a look at the other videos to get other ideas about how this is done, or contact us directly so we can show you how you can be ready for these new requirements from the state of California.